The smell of roasted turkey filled the house, but no one seemed hungry. Laughter echoed from the living room, but it didn't reach the dining table where I sat, bruised, silent, and holding my breath. My daughter, Clara, was busy filling glasses with wine, her gold bracelet clinking against the bottle each time she poured. She looked perfect hair tied neatly, red lipstick shining under the chandelier. You'd never guess the kind of venom her words could carry. My right eye throbbed. I could still feel the dull ache from where her husband's fist had landed 2 nights ago. I told no one, not even my son Noah, who sat quietly across from me, his eyes darting between faces, sensing the storm about to begin. Lydia, my youngest, kept adjusting the napkins, pretending not to notice the bruise. She had always been that way, kind, nervous, afraid to speak when things got ugly. Ethan, my son-in-law, sat proudly beside Clara, his arm around her chair, grinning like a man who'd already won something. His watch gleamed. His voice filled the room, smooth and confident. Is greater than... So, everyone's together again, just like old times, he said with a smirk. Old times were different, I muttered, trying not to look at him. Clara rolled her eyes. Oh, Father, don't start tonight. Let's not ruin Thanksgiving with one of your speeches. Her tone cut deeper than I expected. I took a slow breath, trying to stay calm. I had promised myself I wouldn't react, not tonight. Tonight wasn't about anger. It was about truth. As we sat, the tension thickened. Noah tried to change the subject, asking about the food. Lydia passed him the bread basket, hands trembling slightly. Clara ignored them, staring straight at me. Then, she said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Is greater than... By the way, everyone's been asking about that bruise, Father. Should I tell them how you got it? The room went still. My fork froze mid-air. Is greater than the old man got what he deserved, she continued proudly, her eyes shining with something cruel. My husband taught him a lesson. Ethan chuckled, a short, sharp laugh that sliced through the silence. Noah's face turned pale. Lydia gasped softly. I didn't move. I just looked at my daughter, the same girl I once held when she was small and scared of thunder. Now, she was proud of the man who hurt me. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for me to speak, to defend myself, to explode maybe, but I didn't. I stayed calm, because this moment, this ugly, humiliating moment, was exactly what I had been waiting for. Slowly, I reached into my coat pocket. My fingers brushed against the thick paper, the black envelope. The sound of the envelope sliding across the table made everyone look up. I placed it right in front of Clara. Is greater than... You're right, Clara, I said softly. A lesson was taught, but not the one you think. Clara frowned, her smile fading. What's this? Something I've been meaning to give you, I replied. She tore it open, confident as ever. But the second she looked inside, the colour drained from her face. Her lips parted, and the words caught in her throat. The room fell silent again. Even Ethan leaned forward, trying to see. Her hands trembled as she stared into the envelope, her eyes wide, her breathing uneven. I didn't need to say another word. The truth was already staring her in the face. It started weeks before Thanksgiving. The mornings were quiet back then. I'd sit by the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching the light crawl across the yard. The house felt too big without my wife in it. Her flowers still bloomed near the porch, though she'd been gone 3 years now. That house wasn't just bricks and wood to me. It was where we built a life, where Clara took her first steps, where Noah carved his name on the fence, and where Lydia learned to bake cookies that always burned at the edges. Every corner held a memory, a whisper from the past. So when Clara called one afternoon, saying she was coming by with Ethan to talk about something important, I already felt uneasy. They arrived in a silver car, one of those expensive ones that looked rented. Ethan stepped out first, sunglasses on, smile wide. Clara followed, holding folders under her arm. She looked too formal for a simple visit. Inside, she didn't waste time. Is greater than, Father, "This house is too much for you," she began, pacing like a lawyer. "You should sell it. Move into a nice senior home where you'll be looked after properly." I sipped my tea and said, "I'm looked after fine right here." Ethan joined in, voice smooth like honey but sharp underneath. "Is greater than..." "She's right, sir. We've been looking into some wonderful options, places with doctors, community activities." "I don't need a babysitter," I cut in. The smile on his face faltered. Clara sighed, rolling her eyes. "You're being stubborn again. This house is falling apart. You can't handle it forever." "I've handled worse," I said. Her voice grew louder. "You're being selfish, Father. Do you want us to struggle while you sit here clinging to an empty house?" "Struggle?" I asked quietly. "Or are you talking about your husband's debts?" That was the first time I saw Ethan's mask slip. His eyes narrowed just slightly, a flash of anger before the charm returned. Clara froze, caught between defending him and realizing I already knew more than she thought. After they left, the silence in the house was heavier than before. I walked through each room, touching the walls, the pictures, the places that held our life together. I knew they wanted this house not for me, but for what it was worth. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the visit over and over. Clara's voice, Ethan's smile, the faint sound of their car leaving the driveway. A few days later, I found a strange envelope slipped under my door, a form from a real estate agency. My signature was already printed at the bottom, a forgery, Ethan's work, no doubt. I burned it in the sink. Still, I said nothing to Noah or Lydia. I didn't want them involved. Family shouldn't turn into war, I told myself. But I could feel the storm brewing. I could feel it in the way Clara stopped calling for days at a time, then returned with fake sweetness. I could see it in Ethan's eyes whenever he visited a man running out of patience. I didn't know it then, but that visit was the start of everything. The start of the bruise, the silence, the black envelope that would later rest on the dinner table. It was the moment when love began to turn into something else, something sharp, dangerous, and waiting for the right night to strike. The night it happened, the sky was heavy with rain. Wind pressed against the windows, and the sound of thunder rolled through the hills. I had been reading in the living room, the lamp casting a warm light over the pages. It was peaceful, or maybe I just told myself it was. I wasn't expecting visitors, not that late. So when the doorbell rang, I felt that familiar twist in my chest. A part of me already knew who it was. I opened the door, and there he stood, Ethan. No Clara this time, just him. Coat damp, eyes cold, smile nowhere to be found. "Is greater than evening, sir," he said, voice flat. "We need to talk." I didn't answer right away. I stepped aside, letting him in. The smell of whiskey followed him as he walked past. He didn't sit down. He stood near the fireplace, staring at the family photos on the mantel. "You've made this harder than it needs to be," he said finally. I stayed calm. "What are you talking about?" He turned to me, jaw tight. "You could have just signed the papers. Clara and I had everything planned. You'd have enough money to live comfortably, and we'd take care of the rest. But no, you had to play stubborn old man." I set my book aside. "This house isn't yours to plan with," I said. He laughed, a short, bitter laugh. "You think anyone's going to take care of you when you fall? Your precious son Noah? He can't even take care of himself. Leave Noah out of this." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low now, his breath thick with drink. "Then sign the papers. Tonight. Save us all the trouble." I looked him straight in the eye. "I won't. Not now. Not ever." That was it. The last calm moment. In one fast movement, Ethan shoved the papers at my chest. They slid to the floor. I bent to pick them up, and that's when his hand struck. A hard, violent hit across my face. The pain shot white behind my eyes. I stumbled back, catching the edge of the table. He hit me again once, twice, until my glasses flew off. I tasted blood, sharp and metallic. "Is greater than, you brought this on yourself," he shouted, fists trembling. When he finally stopped, I stayed down, breathing slow, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing fear. He stood over me for a moment, panting, wiping his mouth like nothing had happened. Then he muttered, "You'll regret this," and stormed out into the rain. The door slammed, silence followed, only the clock ticked, slow, steady, cruel. I sat there for a long time. My head throbbed, my hand shaking as I reached for my glasses. When I finally found them, one lens was cracked. I put them on anyway. The blood on my shirt was still warm. I should have called the police. I didn't. Instead, I walked to my study, opened the drawer, and took out a small recording device, one my late wife used for her piano lessons. I turned it on, set it by the phone, and whispered to myself, "Is greater than, let's see how many lessons he's willing to teach." Then I sat back, alone in the dim light, while the rain whispered against the glass. I didn't sleep that night, not because of the pain, but because something inside me had changed. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. Thanksgiving morning came with clear skies and a chill that bit through the windows. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie. The bruise had turned deep purple, spreading toward my temple. I didn't bother trying to hide it anymore. What was the point? The truth was already written on my face. The house was silent. I looked around the empty rooms, the same ones that had heard laughter years ago, the same ones my wife once filled with warmth and piano music. I touched the doorframe one last time before stepping out. In my coat pocket sat the black envelope. I had sealed it the night before, my hands steady, my heart strangely calm. Inside was everything they needed to see, not just the papers, but the truth they had worked so hard to bury. When I reached Clara's house, the smell of food and cinnamon hit me as soon as I stepped through the door. Laughter floated from the kitchen, but it felt hollow. "Father's here," Lydia's soft voice called from the hallway. She rushed to help me with my coat, her eyes falling immediately on the bruise. Her face tightened. "Is greater than, did he?" she started, but I shook my head. "It's fine, child. Let's just eat." The dining room was set perfectly golden candles, fine plates, everything arranged as if the family were whole. But I could feel the cracks beneath the surface. Clara came out of the kitchen in a fitted red dress, her smile sharp and practiced. "Father," she said cheerfully, "you made it." I nodded. Of course, wouldn't miss it. Ethan appeared behind her, tall and smug, holding a glass of wine. "Good to see you, sir," he said, his tone pretending to be polite. His eyes, however, dared me to speak. I didn't, not yet. We sat down. The air was thick with forced laughter and polite conversation. Noah joined later, carrying a pie he'd baked himself. He noticed my bruise too, but said nothing, though his jaw tightened. Lydia kept glancing at me, waiting for a sign. Clara raised her glass and began her toast. "Is greater than to family," she said proudly. "And to my husband, a man who knows how to stand up for what's right." Her words were honeyed, but they burned as they hit my ears. Ethan grinned beside her, hand resting on her shoulder. "Is greater than, the old man got what he deserved," she added with a laugh. I felt every eye in the room shift toward me. Lydia's hand covered her mouth. Noah froze, his face darkening. But I stayed quiet. I simply reached into my coat pocket, feeling the smooth edge of the envelope against my fingers. I placed it on the table. The black paper looked strange against the bright tablecloth, heavy and out of place. "Before we eat," I said softly, "there's something I'd like to give you, Clara." She frowned, confused. "What's this?" "Something you've earned," I replied. Ethan chuckled. "Is this another one of your speeches, old man?" I ignored him. My eyes stayed on my daughter, the girl I'd once carried on my shoulders through the park, who now looked at me like I was an obstacle. Clara tore the seal open, quick and careless. The first thing she saw were the legal papers, the new will, signed and witnessed. Her name wasn't on it, neither was her husband's. She blinked, reading again, her voice catching. "What is this?" I leaned back, calm. My final decision. Everything your mother and I built will go to Lydia and Noah. You and your husband wanted my house. You wanted my money. Now, you'll have none of it. Her face turned red, eyes wet with anger. You can't do this, she shouted. Ethan reached for the papers, but Noah slammed his hand down, stopping him. You've done enough, Noah said coldly. Clara looked from me to Ethan, trembling. Father, how could you? I met her eyes, the same eyes that once looked at me with love. Because I finally learned, I said softly, that family isn't about blood, it's about respect. She stared at me, lost for words. Then, slowly, I reached for the small USB drive still inside the envelope and placed it beside the papers. And that, I added, is something your husband should listen to before the police do. The room went silent. No one moved. The warmth of the food had vanished. The house felt colder, smaller. I stood up, straightened my coat, and looked at each of them one by one. Let's finish the meal, I said quietly. It's Thanksgiving, after all. Then I sat back down, my hands steady, as the truth began to settle over the table like the quiet after a storm. No one spoke for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, its sound louder than the voices that had filled the house minutes earlier. The smell of roasted turkey now felt strange, like a reminder that the day was supposed to be warm, not broken. Clara sat frozen, staring down at the papers spread before her. The colour had drained from her face, her hands still clutching the black envelope. The room that once belonged to her laughter was now filled with her silence. Ethan shifted in his chair, eyes darting from the documents to me. His voice came out shaky, though he tried to sound firm. Is greater than, you can't just change everything like this. You're not in your right mind. Noah stood up slowly. He's in a better mind than you've ever been, he said, his tone sharp and low. Ethan's jaw tightened. Watch your mouth. But Noah didn't back down. He stepped closer. No, you watch yours. You hit him. You lied. You used my sister. And now you want to act innocent? Ethan pushed his chair back, the legs scraping against the floor. You don't have proof of anything. That was when I spoke, calm, cold. Is greater than, actually, I do. I reached for the USB drive on the table and slid it toward him. You remember the night you came to my house? You said I'd regret not signing. You said no one would believe me if I spoke up. Well, I made sure someone would. Clara's eyes widened. What are you talking about? I didn't answer her. I looked at Ethan. You'll find your voice on that recording. Every threat, every word. The room filled with quiet shock. Lydia covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Clara's fingers trembled as she picked up the drive, as if holding it burned her skin. Is greater than, you recorded him? She whispered. I recorded the truth, I said simply. Because I knew no one would believe me otherwise, not even you. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Clara slammed the drive down and stood up. You planned this, she shouted. You wanted to humiliate me. Her voice cracked. The anger slipped into something softer, something close to fear. I looked at her and saw not the cruel words, not the greed, but the brokenness beneath it, all the part of her that once loved her mother and baked pies in this very kitchen. I didn't plan to humiliate you, I said quietly. I planned to stop pretending. Her shoulders dropped. For the first time that night, her pride faltered. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she turned away before they could fall. Ethan stood up too, his face pale now. He looked at the USB again, then at me. You won't get away with this, he muttered. Noah stepped forward. You're the one who won't. His voice carried weight, the kind that ends a conversation. Ethan didn't answer. He just grabbed his coat, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. The front door slammed, and the echo lingered. Clara didn't follow him. She stayed by the table, staring at the spot where the envelope had been. Her voice was small when she finally spoke. Is greater than, I didn't know he'd gone that far, she said. I just wanted to feel like you trusted me again. I sighed. Trust isn't given, Clara. It's built, and tonight you broke what little was left. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She sat down again, shaking quietly. Lydia reached for her hand, and for a moment the sisters sat side by side, one weeping, one comforting. Noah looked at me and nodded slightly, as if saying, "It's done." I stood, taking my coat from the chair. My body ached, but my heart felt strangely light, not happy, but free. At the doorway, I turned back to them. "You taught me something important tonight," I said. "Never mistake silence for weakness." Then I stepped out into the cold evening. The stars were faint, and the air smelled of rain. I walked down the path, slow and steady, until the voices behind me faded. The black eye would heal in time, the bruises would fade. But what happened that night, the truth laid bare across the dinner table, would stay with them forever. For the first time in years, I felt peace. And, as I reached the gate, I whispered to the quiet street, "Is greater than Happy Thanksgiving." Sometimes, the loudest lessons come from the quietest moments. That night, Harold didn't fight back with fists or anger, he fought back with truth. He showed that silence doesn't mean weakness, it means patience, waiting for the right time to speak. And when he finally did, his words cut deeper than any blow ever could. Because in the end, justice doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes, it walks out the front door calm, steady, and free. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.